Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pinche Gringo show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a lot to talk about because things just keep on getting crazier in the world, leading many to believe were the Mayans right? I mean, with rumors flying that maybe they were just dyslexic and then the end of the world wasn't 2012, it was 2021. Or because we're in Mexico and maybe the end is just really late, like by 8 years or something. But the big story of the week was on Tuesday when Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that a COVID vaccine has been approved for public use. This isn't the first time Russia has beat the world in something, and not just for vodka drinking.
Ох, блядь, идет.
If you've read your history, you'll learn that Russia was the first to launch a satellite into outer space. They called it Sputnik 1, an incredible feat of technology that terrified the rest of the world during the Cold War. But the satellite only lasted 3 weeks in orbit. Then came Sputnik 2, the spacecraft that launched into Earth's orbit with a dog named Laila, who then died after overheating due to an air conditioning problem. Then Sputnik 3, whose first launch failed 1.5 minutes after launch, and Sputnik 4, whose failed deorbit landed the device on North 8th Street in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which is now celebrated with an annual Sputnik Fest a few miles from the crash site. So the first coronavirus vaccine to make it available publicly in the world is named Sputnik 5. We're pulling for you, Russia. We're really pulling for you. But the Mexican government today announced the purchase of between 150 and 250 million doses from AstraZeneca with support from the Carlos Slim Foundation. So yes, Mexico, we may be getting our vaccine from a Sanborn's waitress. They come from outer space. But let's talk about two major stories that are captivating Mexico right now that include sex, machismo, bribery, theft, oil, and a lot of stupidity. No, it's not tonight's episode of Maria del Barrio. The first one is about a video that went viral about a federal senator socially distanced from his wife in the same house on the same day she announced that she was infected with COVID. And for some crazy reason, they did it on Instagram Live. But what you're going to see is shocking.
Vean esto, Egan. O sea,
Oye, súbete la cámara, estás enseñando mucha pierna.
mucha pierna, nada más era mi rodilla, ¿no?
Sube la cámara, estás enseñando mucha pierna. Chinelas.
I'm shocked. I mean, who are those ribs from, Senator? Who did you buy them from? I bet they're not the delicious 14-hour smoked ribs from Pinche Gringo barbecue. They look dry, not so moist. You should be ashamed of yourself. Oh, and by the way, what a shitty thing to say to your wife. I mean, maybe he was protecting her from showing something inappropriate on Instagram. But again, why are you doing this video in the first place? But unfortunately, it gets worse.
Ay, no, hombre, de veras.
Pues me casé contigo para mí, no para que andes enseñando.
Perdón.
Now, as so many viral videos do, it sparked a great conversation about machismo in Mexican society and gender roles, which is a really good thing. Also, the senator made a public statement and apologized. But dude, it's 2020. TMI, too much information. And keep your ribs to yourself, especially if it's those ribs. I don't even know where they're from. But the big story truly riveting Mexico right now is a scandal involving former president and the most famous mi rey of all time, Enrique Peña Nieto. Hector, do we have a clip of him as a 16-year-old in the nightclub? We have it? Well, I guess this is the best we got, but I'm going to be, I don't even know what this guy would be as a 16-year-old, right? Hey, Juanito, quiero una botella, way. I'm going to be president one day, way. But Emilio Lozoya, the former head of PM MEX, Mexico's state-run oil company, thrust the former president into the headlines this week. This story starts with the big Brazilian construction company Odebrecht, who paid bribes to public officials across Latin America. Many people were arrested and jailed. And when Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador came into power, they discovered a 3.6 million payment to a company connected to Lozoya. He was arrested in Spain in February and extradited to Mexico recently, just like a rich fresa girl from the Iberoamericana, America's most expensive day club, on a backpacking trip to Europe, who calls her daddy after contracting chlamydia from her Italian boyfriend. You're coming back to Mexico right now, mija, but you can travel first class. So on Tuesday, Lozoya was like, maybe I stole But the former president stole a whole lot more, detailing how he paid bribes to congressmen for votes and to foreign consultants to win the 2012 election. Now, AMLO was like, we need to hear more evidence. And as my dad always said, don't ever trust an oil guy. And the thing is, sitting presidents are very reluctant to prosecute former presidents because they don't want to set dangerous precedents. Can you say that 5 times fast? Presidents setting precedents for former presidents. And before you say that only happens in Mexico, that's not true. It doesn't. It happens in democracies all over the world, especially in the United States, where President Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon in 1974, right after his resignation. Also, former Vice President Joe Biden just last week said that any future prosecution against President Trump would not be directed by him if he's elected president, saying that it would be a very unusual thing, that it wouldn't be good for democracy either. However, he opened the possibility of the U.S. Justice Department prosecuting Trump, and then he would not stand in its way. So a drama that's not COVID is unfolding here in Mexico. Will AMLO prosecute Peña Nieto? That is the question. But moving along to a big story on Tuesday, when Democratic nominee for U.S. President Joe Biden announced his pick for vice president, U.S. Senator Kamala Harris of California. This was incredibly historic because this will be only the 3rd woman to be nominated for this role on a major party ticket, following Geraldine Ferraro in 1984 and our favorite Alaskan Sarah Palin in 2008. I can see Hermosillo from my house. Also, Harris will be the first Black woman to be chosen. Her mother is from India, her father is from Jamaica. And this comes after Vice President Biden announced earlier this year that he would choose a woman to be his running mate. But this choice is even more important because if Joe Biden is elected, he will be the oldest elected U.S. president at 78 years old. They always say the vice president is a heartbeat away from the Oval Office. But what this means for Mexico and the impact on the coming election, we bring in TV news anchor, former federal congressman, member of COMEXI, and frequent contributor to the Pinche Gringo show, my friend, Agustin Barrios Gomez. Agustin, always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's really great to see you today. How are you doing?
My friend. Very well, very, very well. I like the whole Saturday night live vibe.
You like it? Yeah, it's like Reforma, you know. But
exactly.
Listen,
it's exactly like Broadway.
There you go. I mean, but many picks in the past presidential elections were demographic, and what that means is someone was selected from a state or a region that the candidate wanted to win, or maybe an ideological opposite to win a different segment of the population. It seems like this pick was racial and gender-based because Democrats were going to win California already, and Harris is a moderate. She's just like Joe Biden. And going into Mexico, her position's on trade. She supports increased trade with Mexico. She comes from a state with a huge Mexican population. It seems like this pick is pretty good for Mexico. What do you think?
I mean, we could go on about Kamala Harris. I think actually, Dan, I've been reading a lot about something that's worrying me a lot more than the antics of the Biden Harris campaign, and that's the massive election fraud that's coming from sabotaging the U.S. Postal Service. We'll talk about Kamala, but I can't let this issue go unnoticed. I was reading a New Yorker piece just now about exactly how the current president of the United States is sabotaging the U.S. Postal Service. The fact that you've got fully 80% of Democrats who plan to vote by mail, and you compare that to 17% of Republicans, and so by taking away or by making sure that those ballots aren't delivered properly, literally what is going on is a voter fraud of like unheard of proportions in terms of in terms of stealing the election. So in that context, right now, the choice of vice president for former Vice President Biden, it really falls by the wayside in terms of the importance of what's going on.
No, absolutely. The U.S. Postmaster General is a Trump appointee. He had $1 million to his campaign. He's already talked about delegitimizing the election as delegitimate already. This has huge effects. But I want to talk about Mexico for a bit because I think this election is so paramount for the relationship between the two countries. He's got a great relationship right now, or a great relationship with Donald Trump, which we can talk about for hours, as well as not really a great relationship, more of kind of like a little brother just being told what to do. But this Kamala Harris pick is really important because, as I mentioned before, California is a state with a huge Mexican population. So what does a Biden-Harris ticket look in the relationship with our country?
Okay, so very quickly, the current federal government of Mexico is pro-Trump. They are actually working for the Trump campaign. That's why the current president of Mexico went up to Washington, D.C. Several weeks ago, and this personal relationship is more important than the actual content of the bilateral relationship in that world, right? These are two people that basically exist in the space of their own, in their own minds, in their own heads, and their own fantasies, and therefore their personal relationship is much more important than the actual meat or the actual nitty-gritty behind the relationship, which of course is massive, right? This is the most intense relationship between two countries anywhere. So that's the starting point. The second thing is that if former Senator, former Vice President Biden were to win the election, there would be a focus on things that the current Lopez Obrador administration doesn't want the focus to be on. That is the actual issues. That is human rights, that is violence, which is at record levels, and that is actually the backtracking on democracy, which is what's going on as the current president of Mexico actually goes against the institutions that are the infrastructure behind Mexican democracy. And
let me ask you something about that, because Kamala Harris is a moderate, and we had a lot of liberals who are very, very interested in human rights and very with the union. So maybe Elizabeth Warren or another candidate that was more extreme left that a lot of Democrats would have want could have been worse for it, because they could have really highlighted some of the human rights issues here in the country.
Well, let's remember that Kamala Harris was the only senator to vote against the USMCA. So even Bernie Sanders. I mean, you're talking about people. She actually voted against the USMCA.
Why did she do that?
Right? Political expediency. For the same reason that voters in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are going to despise her, because at the end of the day, she's very much a professional politician. And she parses her words, she minces her words. This is not to say that she's not a brilliant woman and an incredibly able politician. It just means that, in the sense that people are looking for, people who really speak their mind, who don't speak the gibberish of the political scene, then that's one of the things that they're going to hold against her, just like they did Hillary Clinton. Now, just coming back, and I think this is the important point. So if Trump gets reelected, and I actually increasingly think he will, then you will have basically this personal relationship, and for as long as Lopez Obrador keeps the Central Americans out, then it should be an okay relationship. Although I am very worried about a massive influx of Mexican undocumented workers as the Mexican economy has collapsed, as violence is at record levels, as there doesn't seem to be any hope of anything changing, because current government policy is very obviously against economic growth. I think you're going to see a large increase in the amount of Mexicans trying to cross the border, which I don't know how that will play out. But I think everything else, Trump would actually allow Lopez Obrador to do whatever he wants, as long as he's his friend, as long as he goes up to Washington whenever he wants, and as long as he keeps the Central Americans at bay.
Right. Now, you said something that you said Lopez Obrador was actively, or his administration was actively supporting the Trump campaign. And of course, his visit to Washington was one of those. Do you have any other reason to believe that this is happening?
Well, sure. I mean, everything that Lopez Obrador has done, including keeping, sending troops to the southern border has been to buttress Trump's political speech or Trump's promises. For all practical purposes, Mexico did end up paying for the wall. And it's pretty obvious that, that they're simpatico. They do not want a Democrat in the White House, because a Democrat would actually have to go back to substance issues. What are you doing with the narco state that has been created in your country, with the fact that large parts of the territory are dominated by organized crime, and you're okay with that? Why are you getting together with the family members of some of the biggest kingpins? Why are you doing this? Why are you dismantling Mexican democracy such that freedom in Mexico is actually being attacked on a daily basis? Why are you going against private enterprise? Why are you going against the energy reform, despite the fact that there are billions of dollars of U.S. investments there that we need to take care of, which is something that Trump doesn't care about, because he actually doesn't want people to invest in Mexico. So he's okay with the fact that American investors get screwed in Mexico. But a Democrat or somebody who's more institutional would actually be would be a thorn in the side of López Obrador regime.
So we have a minute left, but you just said that Mexico has paid for the wall. I've never heard that before. I'm confused. Can you elaborate on that?
For all practical purposes, I mean, insofar as Mexico acceded to send what was it, like 16,000 troops to the Guatemalan border, and when those people are sorely needed in if you're not even going to have proper policing, so people would be sorely needed in a lot of the most violent places in Mexico, once again at record levels despite the COVID pandemic. That basically says that that Mexico has created a wall on its southern frontier that it is paying for. And López Obrador is okay with that, because he understands that as long as he's his friend, as long as he's doing Trump's bidding, he can do whatever he wants in Mexico, and that wouldn't play in a Democratic administration.
Got it. Thank you. I always love talking to you, Agustin. Agustin Barrios Gomez, member of COMEXI, former federal congressman for PRD here in Mexico. Agustin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dan. Take care.
All right. As summer vacations are coming to a close and it's time to start classes again, the COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education systems in history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion students in more than 190 countries, over 94% of the world's student population. Countries have started planning to reopen schools. These decisions carry enormous social and economic implications and will have lasting effects on educators, on children, on youth, their parents, especially for women who have to make choices to leave children at home or not to work because they can't afford childcare. Of course, this virus is serious and potentially dangerous for all people in all age levels, but children are less likely to deal with serious complications from it. The problem rests not with the children, but with the adult teachers who are more at risk, many who are in their 50s and 60s. They have to go to work every day with a fear that they may get infected, which is terrible. Maybe for some, it's a choice to go to work, but for others, it's their job, their livelihood. And it gets more serious than that. Children who have the virus may not get that sick or do not get sick at all, but they can become carriers or super spreaders and infect their caregivers, many who are elderly or at risk. It is also affecting the working poor. Also, each country has a different educational hierarchy, meaning that in some countries it's controlled by the national government, and others, such as the United States, it's local. President Trump, pushing hard for the reopening of schools, actually doesn't really have the power to do so. This decision lies with the states, in most cases, the local community school district, like the Cherokee County, Georgia, where there was a massive debate dividing communities, pitting parents who wants to get Johnny out of the damn house against parents who are terrified of the transmission. The New York Times reported earlier this week about Cherokee County, where almost 1,200 students were quarantined after a small outbreak, and one student was actually suspended for posting this photo of a crowded hallway at the high school. It is reported that over 94,000 children have been sickened by the virus in the United States alone. So we move over to Mexico, where the good news is that education is run by the federal government, and it has partnered with the big TV companies to put lessons on free and open TV, and making a bold decision to keep schools closed until it is safe to open again. Say what you will about the president, but at least he's not pushing for schools to reopen like Trump. So for more on this, we go to Pinche Gringo's show, correspondent Javier Negrete to hear about how people feel about this initiative in Chilangoland.
Hey, I'm Javier, this is Chilangoland. All the kids in Mexico are going back to school next week, but in such a different way than before because they are taking the lessons from TV. So let's find out what the people think about it. Come with me.
Me parece perfecto que hagan uso de instalaciones privadas, por así decirlo, para usarlas como medio para poder seguir educando a los niños y que llegue la educación a todos lados, ¿sabes? Cualquier persona que tenga una televisión pueda recibir esa educación y ojalá sea útil y funcional para la educación del país.
No creo que sea la mejor opción, no estamos acostumbrados, pero pues es lo que se puede ahorita.
Con la tele es mucho más frío y es muy difícil, por ejemplo, para niños con déficit de atención, puede ser complicado un nuevo formato educativo para estos niños, ¿no? Y aparte hay niños que no memorizan, hay niños que son más dinámicos, o sea, como que yo no estoy a favor.
Finalmente lleva un proceso de cuidados ante la pandemia que estamos viviendo.
No estamos todavía como muy preparados para que los niños tengan esa recepción. Creo que sí necesitan que los papás estén más al tanto y deberíamos como más bien trabajar como un sistema que complemente tanto en casa como ahora la tecnología. Entonces creo que es una apuesta que ahora tendremos que hacer todos, incluyendo maestros, alumnos y padres, para poder que funcione este sistema.
So that is it for this week. See you next time.
I don't know. I guess Justin Gordon-Levitt was interviewed. That guy looks exactly like him, right? Am I right, Hector? But anyway, let's go to David Hasso, Director General of Learning Tech Latin America, with more on Mexico's preparation for the reopening of schools. How are you, David? How are you doing today?
Dan, thank you for the invitation. I love to be in this late night show. It's an honor, and I love the format.
No, I appreciate it. The 22 people, the people I paid to watch the show today. I mean, I'm glad they were.
I thought it was only two. It was you and me. But,
just me and you. That's right.
Yeah. That's great.
That's what your significant others say, right? Pretend it's just us and that we're in our underwear, and it makes it all easier. But David, we were just talking about this. This is an extraordinary, unprecedented undertaking to continue instruction for students using the television. And it makes sense in Mexico because we know that still, even though a lot of people have cell phones, it's still not completely adapted, and almost everybody has a TV on open TV. So how is this going to look like here in Mexico?
Well, I'd like to start saying and quoting what the General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Gutierrez, said last week. He said, education is the key to personal development and the future for societies. It unlocks opportunities and narrows inequalities. Obviously, we have heard that COVID-19 is here. We have understood that this is a global problem. You stated that 1.6 billion, so this is 1,600 million people were affected as learners. So this is actually the 20% of the population of these 7.7 billion people in the world. But I'd like to concentrate more on the consequences of this, which is the real elements where we are. One of the key elements is that we should focalize ourselves is at the suppression of the transmission of the virus, at reopening the schools, as you were saying. To use technology is one of the key elements. And in order to have this, not everyone can go into technology. The government has made an excellent decision to go in coverage with TV stations, with this unprecedented message that the president said, to get TV stations, these 4 TV stations, which are the biggest, nationwide. So this will have a coverage, hopefully, above 90% of the population. I think that's a very good step.
So they were saying on Javier's segment that people are concerned about kids with ADHD, like being able to focus. What is classroom instruction going to be looking like when kids are just watching it on a TV? How is this going to go?
Well, definitely, and OECD, ECLAC, and United Nations have been telling us that the unidirectional, which is a one-way streaming on the TV station, is just not enough, but is a great step. So first is the coverage, and then is the quality. So the coverage will get into all of the people, the most vulnerable people that are indigenous people, the poverty that are there. But the main point is to have a way back, to have a two-way communication. So in order to get this two-way communication, we need to step up into technology in an online environment using the internet. And this can be through platforms that can have content that can be transmitted online and offline. So this is definitely not the only solution. It has to be a hybrid solution, a blended learning, not only distance learning, but also online learning. So these two together can make the difference for all of these children.
It's amazing. Now the SEP is making curriculum. The SEP is making curriculum, right? And then it's going. What are these like classroom instruction going to look like? Like a kid goes on TV and he watches his favorite teacher, or is going to be one teacher from the entire country? How are they dividing all of this up?
Yeah. Well, Mexico, every country has their own particularities or their own specific elements. The curricula that Mexico has, it starts with the textbook. Every year there's a distribution of almost 180 or almost 200 million books nationwide for 26 million students in K9 level. So this means that we should focalize ourselves in the same pedagogical way that is being driven. So if you change technology and the methodology, so technology and pedagogical elements at the same time, it can be a massive error for all the country. So if they change technology, which there's no other option, because if you open the schools, there's going to be a spread of the coronavirus in the classroom, and for in a sequence, it will be also this spread of illness into the homes of the people. So the elderly can get also in this sequence ill. So if we go into the curricula, I think that the textbooks are the best option to go forward. But the way to tackle this is to respect the curricula, to respect the textbooks, and that the students really answer inside the textbooks, not as a PDF, not as an EPUB solution, but as an interactive digital content.
Right. It seems like they're going to have to learn, because this is something that has not been done before. I only have 30 seconds left, but are there other countries that have tried this out, and has this been successful somewhere else?
Yes, in Europe and in Asia, countries like Poland, which are the best countries in PISA report, they have great success stories for these type of elements, and also Dubai, which is United Arab Emirates. But this is the starting point for the industry 4.0, which will lead us to the data, which is the new fuel for the data analytics. And as one person once said, crisis is an opportunity. This person that said this, it's Albert Einstein. So he said that in the midst of crisis, there can be an opportunity, and I think that's the bottom line of this. We are in the middle of this crisis.
Right, it's the Greek word.
But the data analytics can be the solution.
Yeah, it's the Greek word for change. So hopefully we'll have some good changes, and hopefully this will only be a short time, and then we can get kids back in the classrooms if COVID goes down. So thank you so much for joining us, David. David from LearnATech. I really appreciate having you on the show today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Last week on our show, we did a story about the culture of ladies and lords, and we highlighted this idea of the superiority syndrome, where people feel like they can do whatever they want because their dad or mom or whatever is in power. So it was incredible that on Sunday, famous chef Enrique Olvera penned an op-ed for Reforma about the same exact thing. But he made his point by talking about his restaurant and how customers demand things that they are just used to eating, like putting lemon on sushi. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Enrique. Thank you for saying this. We bring in now commercial director and Pinche Gringo show correspondent, Laila Garcia Mora, to talk more about this. Laila, isn't it amazing that he said this? Because we've been killing ourselves for years at Pinche Gringo, right? We don't have tortillas. We don't have chiles toreados. We don't have agua de Jamaica and horchata. And we have customers coming into the restaurant with aguacate and chiles in their purses and putting it on the damn meat.
Yes, and we know that our customers like eating that and they are used to that. But like, let's give it a try to knowing different things. Like, there's a lot of people here in Mexico that haven't had a chance of going to an authentic barbecue joint in Austin. And that's what Pinche Gringo is. It's an opportunity, not just about the food, but about the experience. So give it a try. Like, if you don't eat chiles from one day, it's going to be fine. We have another great option, flavor combinations for you guys. So just let it go.
I'm wondering if people demand tortillas in an Italian restaurant. Like, you go to Italiani's, you're like, yeah, I need some corn tortillas and some salsa. Like, it's just ridiculous. I'm so glad he said this. But let's move on to something else. I'm very excited. It is Champions League. It's starting right? It started this week, last week or whatever, but it's happening now. And there's going to be an amazing promotion with Pepsi, who's an official sponsor of the Champions League, and Pinche Gringo, where we're going to be on live open TV with this promotion. Tell us about it.
Correct. We are working with our amazing partner, Pepsi. And during the next week, we're going to have a great package only in Uber Eats. So it's 4 sandwiches of pulled pork, mac and cheese, and obviously cold, delicious Pepsi.
That's amazing. And this pulled pork sandwich, and this is my favorite part of the show. I have a Pinche Gringo pulled pork sandwich here. And I got to tell you something. I've been trying to be vegan all week just to clean my system. I've been eating meat every day for my entire life. And I'm the owner of a barbecue restaurant. I can't. So I'm going to take a bite out of this for the first time. Right?
You love meat. Like, please don't fight it then. It's in your nature. It's in your DNA.
I don't want to clean my system out.
Do it. Just do it. Give it another bite. Just do it.
Tell me about pulled pork. Like, do we take a pig and we pull it like across the street until like the pig is done being pulled, and then we like fry it, or what? What is a pulled pork?
No. It doesn't mean that. Pulled pork means when the meat is ready, we just use our hands to take the meat, and it's just like, you don't need knives, you don't need any instrument. It's so well cooked that it just come off.
Oh my goodness!
It's like, it means that we smoked it perfectly. No, eat the whole sandwich, Daniel.
I know, when I have food in my mouth, I can't host a show, Laila. And you get grossed out all the time when I talk with food in my mouth. You always yell at me about it.
I can yell right now, then.
Laila, I love this segment. And I promise next week's show, we're going to be like a lot more fun. Today, I was going to cry, right? About education, about, like the world coming to an end. We were like, I'm paying for the wall.
We have to talk about.
We're gonna have some fun time. But Laila, thank you. I love having you on here. Laila Garcia, Mora, commercial director, Pinche Gringo.
Finish your sandwich.
All right, I'm gonna finish it. That's it for this edition of the Pinche Gringo Show. Tune in next week where we have invited, to swallow my meat, big time fans of Cruz Azul, America, and Pumas to convince me of which team I should support here in Mexico City. It's going to be a great show, a lot of fun. See you on YouTube or Facebook Live. Have a great week.
Pinche Gringo, Mexico is laughing thanks to you. We like to watch you dance salsa and listen to your bad Spanish too. We like to watch you almost die from spicy food.